Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. And many more, and many more, and many more. Well, good morning, and welcome, 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 welcome to Daring Dialogues Black Table Talk Edition. We are simulcasting on both of our YouTube pages this morning. We are on Official Black Table Talk, and we are also on Life Nation KC. Um, but we're probably, because YouTube still has some more guidelines apparently for me on Official Black Table Talk. I don't know if that is a limitation on the time I'm allowed to be on, because we are a new channel and we have a little over 50 subscribers. So we do need to get our subscribers up over there. But I am simulcasting just in case. For some reason, I don't have the same amount of time that I'm allotted on my new page, Official Black Table Talk. We are asking you to go and subscribe to that page as we are slowly moving our broadcast for Daring Dialogues over to the new page. Um, we are going to continue our Sunday dialogues over here on Life Nation KC. So you will see us on Sundays, but slowly but surely, good morning, we're moving our broadcast to our new page, which is Official Black Table Talk. All right. So it is Mindset Monday. I hope that everybody had a fabulous weekend. I know here in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, the weather was really, really good this weekend. And it is hopefully supposed to continue throughout this weekend, at least until Wednesday. So I'm very excited about that. I think our highs are like 75, 80, and our lows are going to be somewhere in the mid 50s. So that's going to be great weather, time to get out and enjoy the sun, wildlife, nature, plants, hiking, biking, all those good things. All right. So we have been reading through and talking and discussing three men. We started in May. Welcome to June. There's all kinds of awarenesses happening this month. This month is, I believe, Men's Health Month. It's LGBTQIA awareness. It is Black Music Month, which we tend to celebrate over here by singing some of the greatest and best songs that we like over here. So it is Black Music Month. There's a couple of things happening. So I encourage you, if you don't know what's happening this month, you can always go to my page on Facebook, Black Table Talk. I have a breakdown and a list of some of the awareness things happening for the month of June, but also some specific days where certain things are being highlighted. And I want to just go to that really quickly because I know one of them is today. June 1st is, let's see, where is it? June 1st, June 1st, June 1st. There we go. June 1st is Global Day of Parents. Global Day of Parents. All right. So if you're a parent out here, if you are a parent out here, just remember that it is the Global Day of Parents. All right. Mm-hmm. Global Day of Parents. Um, this is also National Caribbean American Heritage Month. So if you have Caribbean American heritage, This is a month recognizing the contributions of and culture of Caribbean Americans. As we said, it's National Men's Health Month. It is also National PTSD Awareness Month, highlighting the realities of post-traumatic stress disorder and available support. It is also Alzheimer's Brain Awareness Month. So all of those things are a part of June. Okay. And today is Global Parents Day. So recognizing parents all over the world. If you are a parent, if you are working hard, if you are grinding, if you are taking care of someone, if you are in that parenting or guardianship role, we say salute and hats off to you. All right. So again, welcome official Black Table Talkers and also those of you who are on our other channel right now. I want to start with the book on Malcolm X. We are reading some of his selected speeches, and we left off with talking about getting to his writing when he began to talk about the ballot or the bullet. And we got halfway through his speech. I don't know about you, but we see what's happening in our nation, especially the United States, when it comes to the voting process. We see what is happening when it comes to our rights being limited and restricted. I find it fascinating that Malcolm X is so thoroughly talking about the ways in which Black people in the United States have been disenfranchised and how his words are still resonating, how his words are still ringing true even in 2026. A friend of mine often says, sometimes we don't recognize the prophet in our midst. Sometimes we don't recognize that prophetic voice in our midst in real time because we are sort of still living through the times. And I feel like that's what happened with both Martin and Malcolm, that they really weren't fully appreciated in their time. We know that by the time that MLK was assassinated, he did not have the favor, right? He did not have the backing of most Americans. And some of that included Black America, right? Now we look back and people do celebrations and we talk about what genius they had, but in their day they were not really looked upon as as forward thinking or as geniuses. A lot of times people saw their stances as too radical, right? Or they saw them as sort of a nuisance. You know, you had Black people saying, hey, we don't want to get involved in this. We kind of feel like you're rocking the boat too much. Even with the Black churches, I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were looking at the statistics around the participation of the Black church during that time, and it was around 13%. So we too have to sort of get out of this myth or this mythology about the civil rights movement that everybody was just on board and everybody was gung ho and everybody was ready to go out and do the work, because the documents don't show that. And to me, as a person that speaks on, you know, civil rights and human rights and teaches, that's actually for me a reassurance that no, we didn't have this whole surge of everybody all at once getting on board and now we've had a drop in participation. No, the historical record shows that the majority of people sat it out. The majority of people were sort of comfortable in their lives. The majority of people were, you know, rightfully afraid of what the consequences and what the blowback and what the backlash would be with their involvement in these things. Everybody was not willing to lose life, finances, and limb to bring about this change. And so we have to start being a little bit more honest about what participation actually looked like. Because if we don't, what we're now doing is we're setting people up with this mindset that if I don't have a whole crowd following me, then something must be wrong. Or if I don't have this huge turnout for an event, then it's not effective. When we know now for a fact that Martin Luther King, they didn't have everybody turning out with them, but they were able to bring about and affect change. And so that's actually reassuring to me that you don't have to have large numbers to affect change. You don't have to have 100% of people on board to get things done. So work with the people that you have, work with the people who are willing, work with the people who are passionate about moving things forward. And don't get so caught up, right, in this idea of we got to have tons of numbers. If you know anything about some of the principles of the civil rights movement, you know that protest, right, was one aspect. That was the visibility part. But beyond the visibility, okay, visibility, yes. Now that we've got your attention, how are we moving forward from there? What are the asks? What are the demands? Who are we willing to engage with on the policy side of things to get things done? All right, so I want to continue reading Malcolm's speech, The Ballot or the Bullet. I'm going to read a segment of it because it is quite long. I'm going to find a good stopping point, and then we're going to shift over and we'll talk a little bit today about Martin's sermon from his series, Strength to Love. He says, you take the people who are in this audience right now. They're poor. We're all poor as individuals. Our weekly salary individually amounts to hardly anything. So I don't understand people who go join a page, follow a page, and then want to talk contrary to the page they follow. I don't understand that. So I'm helping someone find their way to another space. You take the people who are in this audience right now, they're poor. We're all poor as individuals. Our weekly salary individually amounts to hardly anything. But if you take the salary of everyone in here collectively, it'll fill up a whole lot of baskets. It's a lot of wealth. If you can collect the wages of just these people right here for a year, you'll be rich, richer than rich. When you look at it like that, think how rich Uncle Sam had to become, not with this handful, but millions of Black people. Your mother and my mother and father, who didn't work an 8-hour shift, but worked from can't see in the morning until can't see at night, and worked for nothing, making the white man rich, making Uncle Sam rich. This is our investment. This is our contribution, our blood. Not only did we give of our free labor, we gave of our blood. Every time we had a call to arms, we were the first ones in uniform. We died on every battlefield the white man had. We have made a greater sacrifice than anybody who's standing up in America today. We have made a greater contribution and have collected less. Civil rights for those of us whose philosophy is Black nationalism means give it to us now. Don't wait for next year. Give it to us yesterday, and that's not fast enough. I might stop right here to point out one thing. Whenever you're going after something that belongs to you, anyone who's depriving you of the right to have it is a criminal. Excuse me. Understand that. Whenever you are going after something that is yours, you are within your legal rights to lay claim to it. And anyone who puts forth an effort to deprive you of that which is yours is breaking the law and is a criminal. And this was pointed out by the Supreme Court decision. It outlawed segregation, which means segregation is against the law, which means a segregationist is breaking the law. A segregationist is a criminal. You can't label him as anything other than that. And when you demonstrate against segregation, the law is on your side. The Supreme Court is on your side. Now, as we see in 2026, the Supreme Court is now one, right? That's what we see in 2026. In some rulings, the Supreme Court is on the side of the people. In other rulings, the Supreme Court is on the side of authoritarianism. And we have to, again, take that into consideration and think on that. Excuse me. Now, who is it that opposes you in carrying out the law? The police department itself, with police dogs and clubs. They're still using that in New Jersey. Yeah, 2026, there are people, police dogs, and billy clubs being used on people at the Delaney holding facility in New Jersey. They are exercising their constitutional right to peacefully protest, and they are being assaulted by police officers in New Jersey. Whenever you demonstrate against segregation, whether it is segregated education, segregated housing, or anything else, the law is on your side, and anyone who stands in the way is not the law any longer. They are breaking the law. They are not representatives of the law. Anytime you demonstrate against segregation and a man has the audacity to put a police dog on you, kill that dog. I'm telling you, I say it, if they put me in jail tomorrow, then you will have put a stop to it. Now, if these white people in here don't want to see that kind of action, then get down, tell the mayor, tell the police department to pull the dogs in. That's all you have to do. If you don't do it, someone else will. If you don't take this kind of stand, your children will grow up and look at you and think shame. If you don't take an uncompromising stand, I don't mean go out and get violent, but at the same time, you should never be nonviolent unless you run into some nonviolence. I'm nonviolent with those who are nonviolent with me. But when you drop that violence on me, then you've made me go insane. And I'm not responsible for what I do. And that's the very way every Negro should get. Anytime you are within your moral rights in accordance with justice, and then die for what you believe in. But don't die alone. Let your dying be reciprocal. This is what is meant by equality. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. When we begin to get in this area, we need new friends. We need new allies. We need to expand the civil rights struggle to a higher level. And this is, I believe, where Martin and both Malcolm began to really run into their troubles. Because as long as the struggle stayed within the framework of civil rights, stayed within what was happening nationally, statewide, and locally, they didn't really get a lot of the increased pushback until they started making their fights what he's about to suggest right here. He said, we need to expand to a higher level, to the level of human rights. Because that's a different ballgame. Whenever you are in a civil rights struggle, whether you know it or not, you are confining yourself to the jurisdiction of Uncle Sam. No one from the outside world can speak out in your behalf as long as your struggle is a civil rights struggle. Civil rights comes within the domestic affairs of this country. All of our African brothers and our Asian and Latin brothers cannot open their mouths and interfere in the domestic affairs of the United States. As long as it's civil rights, this comes under the jurisdiction of Uncle Sam. And so he is actually, excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough today. He is actually confirming to me what I have always thought was the issue. And that is, once they moved the jurisdiction from civil rights to human rights, to bringing the atrocities that were happening to Black Americans to the world stage, they began to be a greater threat to the project called the United States of America. This is what he says. Excuse me. But the United Nations has what's known as the Charter of Human Rights. It has a committee that deals in human rights. You may wonder why all of the atrocities that have been committed in Africa and in Hungary and in Asia and in Latin America are brought before the UN. And the Negro problem is never brought before the UN. Well, we saw finally in 2026 that a resolution passed, and guess who didn't sign it? We all know who didn't agree to sign it and agree to the resolution: the United States itself and some other European nations. He says, the Negro problem is never brought before the UN. This is part of the conspiracy. This old, tricky, blue-eyed liberal who was supposed to be your and my friend, supposed to be in our corner, supposed to be subsidizing our struggle, and supposed to be acting in the capacity of an advisor, never tells you anything about human rights. They keep you wrapped up in civil rights. And you spend so much time barking up the civil rights tree, you don't even know there's a human rights tree on the side. The level you can then in this country before the nations in the UN. You can take it before the General Assembly. You can take Uncle Sam before a world court. But the only level you can do it on is the level of human rights. Is the level of human rights. Civil rights keeps you under his restrictions, under his jurisdiction. Civil rights under his restrictions. Civil rights keeps you in his pocket. Civil rights means you're asking Uncle Sam to treat you right. Human rights are something you were born with. Human rights are our God-given rights. Human rights are the rights that are recognized by all nations of this earth. And anytime anyone violates your human rights, you can take them to the world court. Uncle Sam's hands are dripping with blood, dripping with the blood of the Black man in this country. He's the earth's #1 hypocrite. He has the audacity, yes, he has. Imagine him posing as the leader of the free world. The free world. And you over here singing, "We shall overcome." Expand the civil rights struggle to the level of human rights. Take it to the United Nations, where our African brothers can throw their weight on our side, where our Asian brothers can throw their weight on our side, where our Latin American brothers can throw their weight on our side, and where 800 million Chinamen are sitting there waiting to throw their weight on our side. Let the world know how bloody his hands are. Let the world know the hypocrisy that's practiced over here. Let it be the ballot or the bullet. Let him know that it must be the ballot or the bullet. When you take your case to Washington, D.C., you're taking it to the criminal who's responsible. Oh, Malcolm had a way with words, did he not? And he's still not wrong in 2026. I'm going to say that again. When you take your case to Washington, D.C., you're taking it to the criminal who's responsible. It's like running from the wolf to the fox. They're all in cahoots together. They all work political chicanery to make you look like a chump before the eyes of the world. Here, you are walking around in America, getting ready to be drafted and sent abroad. Yeah, that's checks out for 2026. Like a tin soldier, And when you get over there, people ask you what are you fighting for? And you have to stick your tongue in your cheek. No. Take Uncle Sam to court. Take him before the world. By ballot, I only mean freedom. Don't you know? I disagree with Lomax on this issue, that the ballot is more important than the dollar. Can I prove it? Yes. Look in the UN. There are poor nations in the UN, yet those poor nations can get together with their voting power and keep the rich nations from making a move. They have one nation, one vote. Everyone has an equal vote. And when those brothers from Asia, Africa, and the darker parts of this earth get together, their voting power is sufficient to hold Uncle Sam in check, or Russia in check, or some other section of the earth in check. So the ballot is the most important. Man, Malcolm, 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 we thank you for your words and laying some things out so clearly that anyone can take up the torch. All right, we're moving on to Martin, and we are continuing in his sermon message, which becomes the praxis for everything he does with the civil rights movement. And this is his message, A Tough Mind and a Tender Heart. We're on the first section of his message, and he's going to talk about soft-mindedness. Soft-mindedness. What is going on with these soft-minded individuals? This is what Martin is about to tell us about in his own way. Soft-minded individuals are prone to embrace all kinds of superstitions. Their minds are constantly invaded by irrational fears, which range from a fear of Friday the 13th to fear of a black cat crossing one's path. As the elevator made its upward climb in one of the large hotels of New York City, I noticed for the first time that there was no 13th floor. Floor 14 followed floor 12. On inquiring from the elevator operator the reason for this omission, he said, "This practice is followed by most large hotels because of the fear of numerous people to stay on a 13th floor." Then he added, "The real foolishness of the fear is to be found in the fact that the 14th floor is actually the 13th. Such fears leave the soft mind haggard by day and haunted by night. The soft-minded man always fears change. He feels security in the status quo, and he has almost a morbid fear of the new. For him, the greatest pain is the pain of a new idea. An elderly segregationist in the South is reported to have said, 'I have come to see now that desegregation is inevitable, but I pray God that it will not take place until after I die.' The soft-minded person always wants to freeze the moment and hold life in the gripping yoke of sameness. Soft-mindedness often invades religion. This is why religion has sometimes rejected new truth with a dogmatic passion. Though through edicts and bulls, inquisitions and excommunications, the church has attempted to prorogue truth and place an impenetrable stone wall in the path of the truth seeker. The historical philological criticism of the Bible is considered by the soft-minded as blasphemous, and reason is often looked upon as the exercise of a corrupt faculty. Soft-minded persons have revised the Beatitudes to read, "Blessed are the pure in ignorance, for they shall see God." This has also led to a widespread belief that there is a conflict between science and religion. But this is not true. There may be a conflict between soft-minded religionists and tough-minded scientists, but not between science and religion. Their respective worlds are different and their methods are dissimilar. Science investigates. Religion interprets. Science gives man knowledge that is power. Religion gives man wisdom that is control. Science deals mainly with facts. Religion deals mainly with values. The two are not rivals, they are complementary. Science keeps religion from sinking into the valley of crippling irrationalism and paralyzing obscurantism. Religion prevents science from falling into the marsh of obsolete materialism and moral nihilism. My God, on today. Woo! My little hairs over here is getting singed. All right. I think we can see with platforms and people like Peter Thiel, right? And Sam Altman, right? Palantir and OpenAI. He says religion keeps science, prevents science from falling into the marsh of obsolete materialism. Some of us right now, people are looking right now and saying, you have it all. How much more stuff do you need? How much more money do you need? You have so much money. Some of these oligarchs, right? And these techno fascists, they have so much money they can't spend it in 100 lifetimes. Meanwhile, you have these programs that they are bringing forward that is leaving people without jobs, without revenue, without a way to sustain their basic needs for life. And here you are with enough money for 100 lifetimes. What in the world? That's obsolete materialism, moral nihilism. You don't care about right. You don't care about what's good. You don't care about what's truthful. You only care about zeros and ones and how much money it can continue to stack you, even though you have enough for 100 lifetimes. Yeah, that's moral nihilism. As Leslie said here in the comments, it's hoarding, but it's gross hoarding. It's unfathomable hoarding. Most of us cannot fathom $1 billion, much less a trillion, but that's what's happening. He says we do not need to look far to detect the dangers of soft-mindedness. Dictators capitalizing on soft-mindedness have led men to acts of barbarity and terror that are unthinkable in civilized society. Adolf Hitler realized that soft-mindedness was so prevalent among his followers that he said, quote, I use emotion for the many and reserve reason for the few. Now, we know who's using that ploy, don't we? Listen to what Martin Luther King says here. He is about to quote Mein Kampf. Okay? In Mein Kampf, he asserted, by means of shrewd lies, unremittingly repeated, it is possible to make people believe that heaven is hell and hell heaven. The greater the lie, the more readily will it be believed. Now, who does that sound like to you in 2026? This man was lying so much in his first time around, they created from, what's her name? I can't think of her name right now, but she came out with this word and it found itself in our culture and we've been using it ever since. Alternative facts, also known as lies, gross lies. And yet, this is a principle of the Third Reich leader. I'm going to keep going with what MLK says, and we're going to wrap up. I don't know if I'm going to get to Medgar today. Yeah, we'll wrap up. Next time, we will start with Medgar. Soft-mindedness is one of the basic causes of race prejudice. The tough-minded person always examines the facts before he reaches conclusions. In short, he post-judges. The tender-minded person reaches a conclusion before he has examined the first fact. In short, he prejudges and is prejudiced. Race prejudice is based on groundless fears, suspicions, and misunderstandings. There are those who are sufficiently soft-minded to believe in the superiority of the white race and the inferiority of the Negro race, in spite of the tough-minded research of anthropologists who reveal the falsity of such a notion. There are soft-minded persons who argue that racial segregation should be perpetuated because Negroes lag behind in academic health and moral standards. They are not tough-minded enough to realize that lagging standards are the result of segregation and discrimination. They do not recognize that it is rationally unsound and sociologically untenable to use the traffic effects of segregation as an argument for its continuation. Too many politicians in the South recognize this disease of soft-mindedness that engulfs their constituency. With insidious zeal, they make inflammatory statements and disseminate distortions and half-truths that arouse abnormal fears and morbid antipathies within the minds of uneducated and unprivileged whites, leaving them so confused that they are led to acts of meanness and violence that no normal person would commit. There is little hope for us until we become tough-minded enough to break loose from the shackles of prejudice, half-truths, and downright ignorance. The shape of the world today does not permit us the luxury of soft-mindedness. A nation or a civilization that continues to produce soft-minded men purchases its own spiritual death on an installment plan. Sheesh. My God, on today. I've got to get around to marking some of these passages so that I can put them online because, wow, he has said a mouthful here. He has said a mouthful. I have always let people know, and I've always thought that religion and science, or what I say, spirituality, not necessarily religion, but spirituality and science are not in competition with each other. And he beautifully lays that out in this first part of his message. The sermon is called A Tough Mind and a Tender Heart. I believe it can be found online. All right. So tell me what you think. I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to read some of the comments here. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. All right, let's come to my other page here. I see we have some new guests with us this morning. Rufus Holman, good morning. Emmy, good morning. Supersonic, good morning. Leslie says, oh, thank you. That's who it was. Thank you. Kelly Ann Conway, introduced into the lexicon for America to describe the gross lying that has been going on as alternative facts. But what are alternative facts? The gross lies that have been put out by our government through its head felon in charge right now, to the point where they had to say it's alternative facts. And then we had the first round of his time. People were actually fact checking those alternative facts. This time around, he has made it so and orchestrated it so that he has pretty much extorted mainstream media platforms, owners of these platforms, into working on his side, strong armed them, some of them, into participating in downplaying all of the alternative facts, not really pushing back on the alternative facts, giving him television time to spew his alternative facts without a check. without fact checking. And so now it is up to you as the American people and those watching around the world when they see these programs to actually go and fact check, because our media is compromised. They're not doing it. They're just allowing him to spew and they're not checking it. And those who do check it, they find themselves outside of the system, being laid off, being told, oh, we've got to let you go because you are doing the work that you're supposed to be doing in journalism, which is not happening at wide scale. Leslie says it is trickery fueled by money to gain control of the whole world. It's hard to believe in words, but your eyes can see it. Your eyes can see it. Science and religion test each other, but really do not conflict. And what I have actually found is a lot of things that they are finding in science, you can go and sometimes you can find it in scriptures. Now, am I saying everything is 100% lined up? No. But there are some scientific truths that you can go and see those things expressed in a poetic way sometimes in the book of Psalms or in Proverbs. I've seen that. Think about this. This is an example. I'm going to give you an example here of this materialism that Martin talked about. Robert Reich, who is a somewhat of an analyst, he's also, I think, a retired professor. He said this: in February, the felon-in-chief purchased over 1 million in Dell stock. Now, he doesn't call him the felon-in-chief. I do. Okay. He purchased over 1 million in Dell stock. Just weeks ago, the felon-in-chief told everyone to, quote unquote, go out and buy a Dell. Its stock price is up over 60% since then. Now, and we just saw this happen this past week, Dell has been awarded a $9.7 billion Pentagon contract. And then he asked a question, do you see the problem here? And this is my response. It is not whether you see the problem. People saw the problem in his first run in the presidential office. They saw the problem. And this time they said, double it. They saw the problem. He was corrupt then. But they said, we're going to double it. Give it to us again. As long as the pain point is applied to people who are not white, it does not faze us. That's essentially what people decided. As long as the pain points are applied to people who are not white, it does not faze us. But then that tune changed to, well, we're going to have some pain. It's going to hurt for a moment. But because the pain is being applied to other people more harshly, we will endure this pain that hurts us, but it will be quick. That was the promise. It'll be quick. We know that you're in pain, but these people, look at what we're doing here. Look at what we're accomplishing here with our anti-Black and anti-immigrant and anti-marginalized. Look at what we're accomplishing over here. We're hurting so many people. And we know that you're a part of that pain too right now. But if you just hang tight, it'll just be quick. It'll just be for a moment. But now that tune has changed to, I can't believe he doesn't care about us. You're just now coming to that realization that he doesn't care about you because he recently literally just said, I don't care about what's happening with Americans. His corruption was never the problem with these people. I know a lot of people were trying to like morally reason and say, well, maybe don't they see how bad he is? Don't they see how immoral he is? His morality was never the problem. His corruption was never the problem. His corruption while hurting them is the problem. And I know for some people that's a hard pill to take, but that's what it is. They never had a real problem with his corruption. If they did, they would have looked at his own life, his own history with relationships, with women, with his wives, with his children, and it would have stopped there. He would not have been the Republican nominee if they had a problem with his corruption. The problem is his corruption while hurting them. That's where we are. Leslie said, it's the two truths in a lie game. Unrequited love with someone who they have never met and who acts against them. People are hoarding food, getting ready for everyone else's suffering. Wow. So that's where we are. And now we have a White House lawn that, as I said, looks like Uncle Bubba or Uncle Skeeter's front yard on I-66. We've got that going on the White House lawn being prepped. We have him deciding that he's going to run everything for his 250 celebration. This is where we are. And so when people say, I didn't vote for this, you did in fact vote for this. You could have used that the first time around. You could have said, I didn't vote for this the first time around. But the reality is, the second time around, you knew what was coming. Because you saw him in his first iteration, and he said, I'm coming back. If I get back in, I'm going to finish what I started, and it's going to be worse. He said, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. So if there was anything that he actually kept his word on, it was that. It was that. All right. If you're watching by our official Black Table Talk page, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you so very much for allowing us to have this first inaugural Black Table Talk edition. We will be back over here on Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, plus or minus 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will try to be up here by 10:05, no later than that. Again, this has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host, Shantae Charles, Black Table Talk Edition. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to evil. So be light, okay? Be on the other side of that. Not the evil, but the light. All right? If you'd like to join me for the talk back, we will be over on my other YouTube page, Life Nation KC. K as in king, C as in country, all one word, Life Nation KC. And we're there now. So if you want to join the talk back, meet us over there. Take care, be well, and most importantly, be light.